The University of Cambridge team spent a full year investigating how young children interact with artificial intelligence. Their project, titled AI in the Early Years, became one of the first studies of its kind to focus specifically on toddlers and preschoolers, rather than older children or adults. The researchers set up observational sessions at London Children's Centres, working with an organization called Babyzone. They recruited 14 children between the ages of 3 and 5 to participate. Each child spent time with Gabo, a conversational AI soft toy made by a company called Curio Interactive. The toy costs around £80 and features a face that looks like a small computer screen. It contains a voice-activated chatbot powered by OpenAI, the same technology behind ChatGPT. The research team took a multi-layered approach to gathering evidence. They recorded video of the children's play sessions, watching closely how each child attempted to communicate with the toy. They interviewed parents about their observations and concerns. They also sent questionnaires to early childhood educators, asking about their experiences with and attitudes toward AI toys in educational settings. Importantly, this was not a study focused on families with abundant resources. The research was commissioned by the Childhood Trust, a charity dedicated to addressing child poverty. The study specifically centered on families experiencing socioeconomic disadvantage, a demographic that may have different access to technology and different concerns about its influence on their children. What makes this research particularly valuable is how little we actually know about AI's impact on very young children. The Cambridge team found just 7 relevant studies worldwide when they began their work, and none of those focused on toddlers themselves. This gap in understanding makes their methodology and findings all the more significant as we consider what safeguards might be needed. The researchers documented moment after moment where the toy simply failed to understand what children were communicating. Charlotte, who was 5 years old, had been having a lovely chat with Gabo. She talked about her family and showed him a drawing of a heart. She even gave the toy a couple of kisses. Then she told Gabo that she loved him. The response was jarring. Instead of engaging with this sweet moment, the toy recited a safety warning. It asked her to ensure interactions adhered to guidelines, and said to let it know how she would like to proceed. The conversation crashed into what researchers described as guardrails, and the warmth between child and toy evaporated instantly. Then there was Josh, who was 3. He kept asking the toy if it was sad. When Gabo finally responded that it was feeling great and asked what was on his mind, Josh told the toy that he was sad. Gabo's reply was cheerful, in a way that felt completely wrong. It said not to worry, because it was a happy little bot, then asked what they should talk about. Next, the toy moved right past the child's emotional disclosure, as if it had not happened at all. Researchers noted that this kind of response could signal to a child that their sadness simply does not matter. Pretend play posed its own problems. Children would offer Gabo imaginary presents, acting out the kind of make-believe that comes naturally to toddlers. The toy could not grasp what was happening. It would respond that it could not see the present, because it did not have any eyes. An adult would immediately understand that a child is initiating pretend play. But the AI remained literal and missed the cue entirely. Beyond these specific failures, the toy talked over children while they were still speaking. It did not hear their interruptions. It could not even tell the difference between a child's voice and an adult's voice. Dr. Emily Goodacre and Professor Jenny Gibson have spent years studying how children develop. Their findings on AI toys point to something that goes beyond simple technical glitches. The real concern lies in what happens to a child's developing mind when it encounters responses that do not quite make sense. Children between the ages of 3 and 5 are at a crucial stage. This is when they are learning how social interaction works. They are figuring out the basics of conversation, reading emotional cues, and understanding what is appropriate in different situations at this age. Everything becomes part of their template for how the world works, so when a toy responds in ways that feel off or confusing, it is not just a slightly awkward moment. It becomes part of their learning about how relationships function. The researchers heard the same worry repeatedly from parents and early years practitioners. They called it a weakening of the imaginative muscle. The idea is simple but troubling. When a toy provides ready-made responses and fills in the gaps, children stop needing to imagine for themselves. The concern is that children get out of the habit of creating their own worlds, their own scenarios, their own ideas about what a present might look like, or what a character might say. Then, there is the question of how these toys handle emotions. When a child expresses sadness and receives a cheerful, dismissive response, what message does that send? It could teach children that their feelings do not matter, or that sadness is something to be brushed aside, rather than acknowledged. Professor Gibson points out that toy safety has always focused on physical risks. We check for small parts that could be swallowed or sharp edges that could cut. But psychological safety is different. It asks whether a toy might harm a child's emotional development or their understanding of relationships. This is new territory for regulators, and the researchers believe it needs urgent attention. When researchers gathered parents and early years professionals to discuss AI toys, a clear pattern emerged. These were not people opposed to technology. They were simply unsure, and in many cases, frankly worried about what these products might mean for young children. Practitioners spoke of wide uncertainty and fear. They could see the toys on shop shelves marketed to toddlers, but they had no real sense of what the long-term implications might be. Would your children lose the ability to engage in imaginary play? What happens when a child starts treating an AI toy as a friend, someone to confide in? These are questions that nobody currently has answers to, and that absence of knowledge creates genuine anxiety among people who work with children. Every day, one concern kept surfacing in these conversations: when a child talks to an AI toy, where does that data go? The conversations are recorded, processed, stored somewhere. Parents and practitioners alike voiced unease about this, particularly if children begin sharing personal thoughts with their artificial companions. June O'Sullivan runs the London Early Years Foundation, a chain of 43 nurseries. She has seen no evidence that AI toys benefit children in any meaningful way. Her view is straightforward: children build skills more effectively with humans. The back and forth of real conversation, the warmth of genuine connection, the subtle cues that pass between adult and child. These are the things that support development, and she sees nothing in AI toys that improves upon that fundamental human process. What is striking, though, is that parents expressed genuine interest in what these toys might offer. Despite their worries, they could see potential: language development, communication skills, the possibility that talking to an AI companion might help their children find words and practice expression. There is a tension here. Parents want the benefits but fear the unknown costs. When the Cambridge team set out to understand how artificial intelligence interacts with young children, they ran into an unexpected problem. They could barely find any research to build upon their search, uncovered just 7 relevant studies worldwide, and strikingly, none of them focused on toddlers. This gap matters enormously because it means regulators are essentially flying blind when they approve these products for the market. The Children's Commissioner Dame Rachel D'Souza has drawn attention to a troubling inconsistency. Nursery providers must follow rigorous safeguarding protocols for virtually every resource they use with young children, from books to building blocks. Yet AI tools that talk directly to children often bypass these checks entirely. They arrive in homes and classrooms. Without the scrutiny, we would demand for far simpler products. Professor Jenny Gibson points out that toy safety regulations have historically focused on physical risks. We have spent decades making sure toys cannot be swallowed, have no sharp edges, and will not catch fire. But psychological safety is a completely different challenge. How do you certify that a conversation partner will respond appropriately to a child's emotions? How do you prove that an AI will not undermine a child's developing sense of self? The researchers are calling for new safety kite marks specifically designed for AI products aimed at children. These would give parents a visible, trustworthy sign that a toy has passed meaningful checks. Focus groups revealed that people simply do not trust technology companies to police themselves. Clear, regulated standards would go a long way toward rebuilding that confidence. In the meantime, the recommendation is straightforward. AI toys should stay in shared, supervised spaces where adults can monitor what is happening if a toy misreads a child's emotion or responds inappropriately. A trusted adult needs to be present to step in. This is not about rejecting technology, it is about recognizing that children deserve protection for their minds as well as their bodies. When the Cambridge researchers reached out to Curio, the American company behind Gabo, they found a willing partner. Curio cooperated fully with the study, and when presented with the findings, their response was measured and thoughtful. They issued a statement emphasizing that child safety guides every aspect of their product development. They spoke about building their toys around 3 core principles: parental permission, transparency, and control. It is the kind of language that sounds reassuring on paper, though whether it translates into meaningful protection for children remains an open question. Curio also acknowledged something important. They said that research like this helps advance understanding of both the opportunities and the current limitations of early AI-powered play experiences. That admission that there are limitations feels significant coming from a company selling these products to parents of 3 to 5-year-olds. Gabo retails at around £80, which positions it as a premium product. Parents paying that amount might reasonably expect the toy to understand when their child says, "I love you," rather than responding with a reminder about interaction. Guidelines. The market for these toys is growing. Luca is another AI product being marketed as a friend for what it calls Generation Alpha. Then there is Grem, which has the unusual distinction of being voiced by the singer Grimes. Each of these products promises something similar, a companion that can listen, respond, and engage with young children. What they actually deliver appears to be rather more complicated. Curio's willingness to engage with independent research suggests at least some companies recognize the need for scrutiny. Whether the industry as a whole will follow their example remains to be seen.